Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, March the 28th, 2023. I think a couple of people are visiting this channel regularly. Maybe one or two, I don't know. So if you're one of them, thanks very much. I'm not going to go so far as ask anyone to subscribe because right now I don't think the channel's good enough. I've got too much to do. I need a camera. I need to perhaps even consider what I'm wearing. I mean, I know I'm wearing the same thing pretty much every day. This coat, two coats, scarf. You know, I'm really cold. It's late March and where I am, yeah, it is cold. And maybe that cramps my style a bit. But really, looks don't really concern me too much, and maybe they should. But anyway, if you are visiting this channel, thanks very much. But, you know, I'm only just starting, and I do understand that major improvements are required. Now, as far as what I want to talk about today, I want to talk about Kamala Harris, who is the Vice President of the United States. Now, she gets a lot of bad press. I mean, everything I've read about her talks about what a disaster she is. She's like a millstone round Joe Biden's neck. The poor man can't even retire at the end of this term because he's got to worry about her becoming president. But, you know, vice presidents are often mocked. I'm old enough to remember Dan Quayle. He was George Bush Sr.'s vice president. He got into real trouble for correcting a child's spelling. The child had spelt potato correctly, I think, with no E, and he suggested the child had made a mistake and that there should be an E on the end of potato. So that didn't work out well. Then there was Nixon's vice president, Spiro Agnew, who ended up in prison. So Kamala Harris, as a disastrous vice president, is not exactly breaking any ground. Nonetheless, it's worth looking at her chart. And I want to look at her chart from two perspectives. I want to look at her chart from a Western perspective and an Eastern perspective. Remembering that she is, I believe, half Indian as in the subcontinent. I think, is it her, I don't know which of her parents, I think it's her mother is from the Indian subcontinent. So anyway, I'm going to look at her chart from the perspective of East and West. And I don't know which is, I mean, the West Western chart has a lot of problems, but the Eastern chart does give a bit of hope, and that's something that I will be looking at. But before I do that, I want to look at the stars for today, which is Tuesday, March the 28th, 2023. So let's have a look. Here we go. Okay, there we go. There is a picture of Kamala Harris, and there is the chart for today, Monday. No, not Monday, it's Tuesday. Tuesday, that's today's chart. So the moon is now moving into Cancer. There it is at noon New York time today. The moon is at 2 degrees Cancer. So in one sense, this is good because the moon actually works very well in Cancer. The moon rules the sign of Cancer. It's a bit more stable in some respects than being in Gemini. It is into nurturing, into security, and it's emotionally well balanced. Yet the moon is making a conjunction to Mars, and we do have to be careful with this. There was a medieval astrologer Guido Bonatus, and he said something like, when you've got a Moon-Mars contact, he said something like, the woman is always right, I'll warrant, or something like that. And what he was saying is that when you've got a Moon-Mars conjunction, particularly if you're a man, you need to treat women with great caution. And if you're in an argument with women, don't get involved. Just say you're right. Don't push the point, because the woman is always going to win. So if you're a man, and if you're involved with a woman in whatever capacity, you should probably give her the benefit of the doubt if you want to avoid trouble, all things being equal. Now, what else is going on? We now have, you look at the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction is continuing to get closer and closer. Mercury's made the conjunction with Jupiter, but today does have a Mercury-Jupiter feel to it. So yes, we can express ourselves, we can put forward our plans, and that will be very fortunate if provided we've done our work, which I think we have. Then now we can talk optimistically about the future. I should also say that the moon is making a favorable aspect to Saturn. Now, in terms of sun sign astrology, a sun sign astrologer faced with this moon trine Saturn would probably say that Capricorns and Cancerians might have romantic success, that these two signs can really benefit from partners, and it also is an indication that with the moon represents someone who is quite young. Saturn is someone who is quite old, and so whoever we are, it seems that if we're dealing with older people, we can come to an accord with them. We can come to an agreement with them. Saturn being the older person. So that's kind of quite nice. And it's if you're young, you need to respect authority. In fact, you can benefit from respecting authority. Having said all this, there are a few problems today which I did jot down. First thing is that Neptune, there's Neptune. It's on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. And when you've got Neptune on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint, there's a possibility for getting quite depressed. And it kind of runs counter to what I've been saying earlier. But if we have been ruminating for some time, if we've been thinking that things aren't going well, with Neptune on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint, we can start to become unreasonably negative. So, if you find yourself being really negative today, thinking the worst, consider the possibility that it's caused by Neptune on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. Now, that means that you need to realize it's just because of a passing astrological event. And very soon this configuration will break up. So, nil desperandum, as they say in Latin, don't despair. Things will get better. So that's something to watch out for. Now, if you're into hypothetical planets, the planets that don't necessarily exist, the hypothetical planet Vulcanus is aspecting the Mars-Saturn midpoint. Now, Vulcanus is about power, just the exercise of power. Mars-Saturn is about death, destruction, and misery. And in this world today, and perhaps over the next couple of days, the exercise of power could cause misery. So when you're going about your daily life today, look at how power is being exercised. Look at how it's being exercised in such a way that it's causing misery. Then you have to decide what to do. Do you stand up and fight injustice? Or do you accept the situation and you don't risk your neck? I'm not saying one approach is better than the other, but you need to perhaps think it through. Also, on a negative note, Mars is making a 45-degree aspect to Uranus. There's Uranus, there's Mars, 45 degrees, that's an eighth of the circle. And that means events, perhaps violent events, explosions. I know there are explosions all the time, regardless of what the planets are doing. But there may be something unexpected. We must look around, look to see what's going to happen. Read the news. What's going to happen? Something that people are not expecting. People are not part of people's plans. Perhaps on a more mundane level, some people are going to be really obnoxious and really dangerous. They think they know best. They're going to mess around, maybe with electrics, with power, even with guns. And they think they know best, but they don't know best. So stay away from people taking risks. And of course, we ourselves should not take risks. So don't play around with your chemistry set today, because I think it could end in tears. Now, let's move to Kamala Harris's chart. Here it is. Now, what is amazing about Kamala Harris's chart is that she was born exactly on a new moon, on a full moon. I mean, exactly. There's her moon at 2739 Aries. There's Sun at 2748 Libra. So, what does that mean? It's got to mean something. Now, the way I usually interpret full moons in people's charts is to say that you get a swing between the moon sign and the sun sign, and a very fast swing. So Libra is all about being nice, looking for the balance, being the compromiser. And so that can be Kamala Harris for some of the time. And then she can switch into the moon. The moon is just wanting your own way, and you couldn't care less about anyone else. So I think that working for her, having anything to do with her, could be a bit of a roller coaster. You think she's nice and pleasant and all of that kind of stuff, then suddenly she swings, and she's a real nightmare. And this is further emphasized by the fact that she has Uranus aspecting her sun-moon midpoint. So there is Uranus in Virgo, and it's making a 45-degree aspect to the sun, making a 135-degree aspect to the moon. It's aspecting the sun-moon midpoint by 45 degrees. And so when you have a planet aspecting the sun-moon midpoint, this can be really important, and indeed it can actually define someone. Two astrologers, Charles Harvey and Michael Harding, they wrote a book called Working with Astrology, and they looked at the sun-moon midpoint. I think it was Charles Harvey that wrote the section on it. And Charles Harvey's hypothesis was that, when you've got a planet on the sun-moon midpoint, it just stands out. And the example he liked to use was that of Janis Joplin, who had Jupiter on the sun-moon midpoint. But that Jupiter, according to Charles Harvey, really described Janis Joplin. And so in the same way, Uranus is on the sun-moon midpoint here. And so Uranus somehow describes Kamala Harris. There's something about her that is disruptive, that jars, that causes trouble, is a problem in relationships. Now, I'm going to just briefly quote from German astrologer Reinhard Ebertin in Combination of Stellar Influences. It's a great book. I advise anyone interested in astrology should have a copy, particularly midpoints. And he says about Uranus on the Sun Moon midpoint, the urge for freedom, the urge to act independently, lack of adaptability, inner rebellion, sudden events in friendship, marriage, parental home, shared upsets, sudden conflicts, separation of the partners. And I'm thinking, she has problems, Kamala Harris, keeping employees. People don't like working for her, as far as I can see, and that's perhaps that Uranus on the Sun Moon midpoint. She is quite an abrupt and jarring person, so that's something to consider. What else? Now, Saturn has been going into Pisces recently. Last week, Saturn went into Pisces, and that's her midheaven, the point connected with career. And so Saturn is on the verge of crossing Kamala Harris's midheaven. Now, Saturn on the midheaven is often not a bad configuration, because it can really help people in terms of sorting out their career. But I suspect in Pisces it's going to be a grind. I think she's going to feel rather stuck, and I think she's going to really, the job is not going to really weigh in on her, and that's something we need to look at. Now, looking at Kamala Harris's Indian chart, let's hope that I am able to show this. So let's see, here we are, there we go. So that is her Vedic chart, and it's very different, square wheel. And so what do we see? What do we notice? Well, Rahu is in the first house. Now, what does Rahu mean? It means the North Node. Don't worry too much about the definition of the North Node if you don't know what it means. But she has Rahu in the first house, the North Node in the first house, the South Node in the 7th house. Now, in Indian astrology, Rahu is often connected with the symbolism of the dragon. Rahu is the head of the dragon. In Western astrology, in Latin, it was Caput Draconis, which means head of the dragon. The South Node is, I think, Cauda Draconis, the tail of the dragon. And in Indian mythology, it's quite interesting because they talk about a dragon that ate, I think, a potion of eternal life, and it stole it from the gods, I think, and it got cut in half. So you had the head of a dragon and the tail of a dragon. And the head of a dragon has a head, obviously, but the tail of a dragon has no head at all. So in other words, it's a head. It's out of control force. And in terms of astrology, the Rahu tends to be incredibly ambitious. And she has got Rahu in Gemini. And in Indian astrology, Rahu works very well in Gemini. And in terms of what's going on at the moment, there is in Indian astrology a predictive system which breaks up one's life into sections. And she is in a section of her life which is ruled by Rahu, and there it is. You can see it started on the 20th of July 2012 and it ends on 20th of July 2030, so it lasts for 17 years. And so with that Rahu in Gemini, this is actually this 17 years 18 years from 2012 to 2030 is a really overall quite fortunate time for her. So I said there's some hope from her Indian horoscope, and 2012, I believe she made an important speech to a Democrat National Convention. That happened. In 2017, 2016, I think she got elected to the Senate. So overall, this is a really good time for her. Now, in Indian astrology, you have a Mahadasha, and that's the Rahu ruling this 18-year period, and then you've got a Subdasha. And if you look here, in 2023, she moved from her Rahu. She moved into a period of time which is ruled by Rahu as the Mahadasha, but its sub-ruler as the Subdasha was ruled by Ketu. So Rahu, the main ruler, Ketu ruling the sub-period, and this lasts from 2023 from January 2023 to February 2024. Now, I think this is a period of craziness, of real ambition, but a period when she is really going to strike out. By strike out, I don't think I mean that in a positive way. She's going to be doing anything to secure her position. And she could really, really cause a lot of damage. But I do believe there's a certain sense of choice here. If she gets the right advice, and she is really, really focused, I think she might be able to salvage something from her current situation. I'm not convinced that it's completely 100% over for her. Unfortunately, I don't think she's going to make it. I think she's the kind of person that is not going to take the opportunities that are there for her. I mean, I think matters aren't helped by the fact that in the run-up to the presidential election, she's in Rahu Venus period, so that she moves out of this, and then she moves into this, and Saturn is transiting opposition her Venus, and I think that I don't think she's going to be in the right frame of mind to win a presidential election, whether it's vice president or president or whatever. But I would think that she has a chance if she is really honest with herself. She has some humility, and she gets herself together. But as I said, I don't think it's going to happen. But still, I'm just showing you that the Eastern chart has a glimmer of hope in it. It suggests that she can, if she does everything right, that she can kind of turn things round. But it's almost too late, isn't it? Anyway, that is all I'm going to say for today, and I hope you found that of some interest. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow.